Pantyhose? What was she like as a person? Was she nice or was she mean? Wasn't she the one who really invented pantyhose?
That is the King's impression of McSheer.
I'd like to be forced feminized. I'd like to be made to be a lady. And, welcome to episode 3 of Tights Frame of Mind, a Pantyhose podcast. I am your host, Pantyhose King, and with me I have McSheer, who he doesn't like to say his name. He's not a big name sayer. Should probably preface with, just so you guys know, we are recording live footage of our Pantyhose legs right now for patrons who want to sign up for our Patreon. So that's an incentive. I know that it'll just drive everybody wild to see the live wearing of pantyhose. And if that is not something that drives you, you can also get extended episodes and a chance to even be on the show. So sign up, please, and we will love you forever and like you always. And excuse the car in the background. That was not me having guests.
Thanks for having us back, and sorry to keep everyone waiting a little bit longer this week. I promised the King here, in doing so, that due to some travelling around the world and stuff, getting back very early this morning, UK time, that I thought to make it up, I would wear for this episode.
Yes, we're both wearing right now. Finally, episode 3, we got McSheer in some.
Sometimes my legs look horrible in these things, and sometimes, depending on how I'm standing or
I
something.
haven't seen them look horrible yet. What are you talking about?
Sometimes they look particularly great in these things, and sometimes they look just short and stumpy little things, and I can't tell.
They don't look short and stumpy. They don't. You got nice legs.
That's very nice of you to say. Thank you, Your Highness.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
Bitch.
Countryman. No, wait, what do they call when it's the King's...
My subject.
Thank you, subject.
Do you want to tell us what you're wearing today?
I am wearing a, actually double layer. I've got legs, base, and then Cecilia de Raphael over the top, so they're like super shiny and they're really snug. And what about you?
I had a few options, and I was thinking, do I wear a thick pair of British black waitress tights? Do I wear some really sheer Hooters waitress tights? But I've decided on a very cheap pair, deliberately nice, clean, new, cheap pair of 15 denier, sort of a musk colour. I think the colour is musk. Quite bizarre choice, but
do you want to feel cheap? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I think I wanted to... You know when girls would slip a pair on for work? Kind of vibe.
Yes, I do.
I think I just wanted to project that feeling today.
Although, I don't think girls have slipped a pair on for work in the United States for quite some time. I think that's sort of the way of the dodo here. But I know this girl has slipped a pair on for work every day for the past few years, so... I mean, that's got to count for something, right?
I was so much happier. Last time we recorded an episode, I was literally on the other side of the world following a strict routine, which I couldn't
It was a nightmare.
I couldn't describe it to you well enough, and it was a nightmare. But now I can relax, and I can't believe I'm actually wearing. I'm feeling really good. It feels nice.
You can't believe it. He cannot believe it. But you want to know what else? Actually, this is a little bit of a thing that we're going to do each episode. We encourage anybody out there who has not worn publicly, if they are inspired by listening to us to wear publicly, to please reach out and to let us know that you've done that. And we have Dean Tightsman, who wrote us and said, it was so inspirational to hear you both chatting about tights, pantyhose in parentheses. He's from the UK. Hearing you tell McSheer to wear out made me think I should go for it and wear. It made me not want to be left behind in the pantyhose revolution. I did pass a few people, and some got quite close to speak to me generally. My heart was beating fast, but it was so good to wear. Hearing you guys chat about tights is fantastic. So congratulations to Dean Tightsman. It warms my heart that we inspired him to take on the wearing publicly.
That's a UK-based hoser, is it?
Yes.
And did they send a picture? Did they describe anything else about that experience? That's fantastic that someone's already beaten me to it.
They did. They did. They sent their pictures, which I will be posting on Patreon. You can see Dean's legs as well. And speaking of Patreon, we are going to give a shout out to our first patron, Jamie. Jamie, you are the light of our lives, and thank you for supporting the show.
What would happen if I wanted to record my own podcast?
You can actually use Anchor, and you can do that right from your phone or computer.
And does that cost me any money?
Nope, that's the best part. It's totally free. Also, it distributes your podcasts on all the platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
But I always was a bit intimidated by all the places I'd need to go or things I need to set up to record a podcast.
You can do it all through Anchor. Just download the Anchor app or go to Anchor FM, ANCHOR.FM.
I'm going to go there straight away and start my own podcast to rival this one.
Good luck. I have a lot of stuff, but is there anything that we talked about that you would like to begin with?
All I know that I owe the listeners, based on the promise of the end of episode 2, and yourself, Your Majesty, is that this episode is all about you, because I didn't really give them. There wasn't enough wiggle.
I never said that. I never did. Okay, I have to clarify. I did not tell him off air or be like, you talked about you and you need to talk about me. This is not me. This is him.
It is me. It is me. And I admit, when people say the words "all about you" or "all about me" in the context of talking about someone else, it's always a nightmare to be on the receiving end of that. The king here did not say that. I'm just trying to keep to my promise that this week would be all about.
Okay. It's not our promise, because people are gonna think I'm some sort of diva bitch. You need to keep the show focused on the star. Okay, that's not me. This is totally McSheer's doing, and I appreciate it, but it is all McSheer. So, all right, I'll take it away, McSheer. Fire it at me. What do you got for me?
What's it been like? When do you last have sex in tights? You talk about how you always have sex in tights. Is that something you're still doing regularly, or is this stuff you've done in your?
I had sex. Well, it wasn't sex. It was mutual hand jobs in Pantyhose this past weekend, and he had never worn before, but he was curious, and that was exciting. As far as talking to people in the Pantyhose community, I talk to so many people throughout the week. It's nonstop. I can't stop talking to people. Just before we got on air, I was talking to somebody on FetLife who says that they only wear a couple of hours a year. They said that they only wear a couple of hours a year and only for a couple of days a year and only for a few minutes. And I was like, why? And the answer is because my girlfriend stops by a lot and I don't want to get caught. That is what I want to end with this podcast. I don't think that people should be fearing their significant others coming by as though they were the Gestapo. It's...
Yeah, but I empathize with that. I'm sorry. I just need a second to process what you just said, because it's just wonderful. So, because I think I and many people understand the sort of pressure in squeezing it in your spare time, keeping it a secret, the panic, and also how, incidentally, that becomes part of what's sexy about it, but that's another conversation. What I love about what you said, or about what he said, is that so specifically he can do it, what did you say, twice a year?
Twice a year for a couple of minutes.
Twice a year for a couple of minutes. What is it his girlfriend's doing twice a year for a couple of minutes that allows him to...
Well, that's the thing, is how's she stopping by that much? Does she stop by that much unannounced? I figure most people, if you don't live together, isn't it sort of generally a courtesy to say hey, I'm heading over, just to make sure they're home, right?
Maybe he lives with his... I'm just trying to fathom a reality where you literally only have a couple of minutes twice a year to dress. It takes...
Yeah.
What if you're rushing and you rip them? It doesn't leave you much wiggle room.
No, just a couple of minutes. I don't think I could put on pantyhose for a couple of minutes and then just take them off. I'd find myself angry because I'd feel it's sort of only eating a bite of food when you're hungry.
Yeah, and when you're only able to do it that infrequently, which I remember that even when it's I've never been as infrequent as that, but I have some pretty infrequent episodes in my life, and you can get pretty ropey at putting them on and stuff, and the panic that was...
That's not infrequent though, is it? That's I don't even think that's infrequent. I think that's just sort of your depriving yourself of it.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of this episode, we'd have already put them on and taken them off 6 times.
Yeah, we've worn tights and pantyhose longer than basically what we've covered 3 years worth of this person's, like, and I feel, and if he's listening, I'm encouraging you, and I will encourage you on FetLife. We're going to talk about this, buddy. We're going to talk about this, because by the time I'm done with you, you're going to be wearing for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes, and then eventually you're not going to get caught, because you're not going to get in trouble, because what you're doing is not something that is caught worthy. You're not stealing. You're not cheating. You're just wearing pantyhose. That's it.
So this person on FetLife that you're talking to, maybe what they would be helpful is a conversation at first, because it's a big leap to just say you're going to be, because we don't know anything about his context and his environment, is everything. It's more.
Oh, no, I mean, yes, obviously the conversation would be important to have with the girlfriend, but I'm saying, like, I want him to be not completely paranoid either.
Yeah, of course. But why don't we can you invite your FetLife friend on for a little interview? I mean, I'm just so fascinated by the 2 minutes a year, twice.
I can ask. I certainly can ask. I mean,
yeah, it might be a really quick interview.
he said, and I quote, I am very discreet and closeted about my wearing. So he might not be the most, like, likely candidate for a podcast, but if so, I will ask, and I'll see if I cannot seduce him into doing it.
I sit here boldly discussing this person's context with you here on air, but the truth is I actually should show more sympathy, because I'm very fortunate. Am I out the closet, in the closet? I definitely don't wear publicly, and I don't want to go into my stuff again immediately after talking about you. but I empathise with that fear. I'm very fortunate that I'm just sat here in my significant other's apartment, and she knows, she's cool, but it's been a long journey to this point. It's been a really long journey to this point, and it's still not quite how I'd imagined it, but at least I'm sat here recording a Tights podcast openly.
So then my question to you is, what is the ideal situation?
Ideal situation?
Like, you said that this is not ideal
because
or it's not how you imagined
because
it.
always had naively imagined my partners to, once I'd done the hard part of coming out, I then want them to understand it completely and be able to fantasize with me completely and play everything out exactly how I want it. And what I then learned was there's a whole lot more explaining of, even explaining to you my version of the kink requires a bit of back and forth, right?
I mean, yeah, to a degree.
So imagine someone who's like, it wasn't like when I first came out to her about it, it was all great and everything was grand, because I wasn't even confident myself. I remember first coming out and saying, I like to be forced feminized. I then had to...
How long ago was this?
2020.
Okay.
But that, do you know what I mean? I didn't go, hey, I'm a hoser. Hey, I like tights. Hey, I like this or that.
I don't think anybody has.
I just said...
I don't think that's how it goes down.
Things were getting serious with us, and I was like, here we go again. I'm just going to tell this person straight off from all the negative things I had in the past. I'm really enjoying the sex of this relationship. I really fancy. I'm in love, feeling good. And anyway, I said, she goes, what's up? What's wrong with you? I said, I just need to tell you something. And I knew she thought I was going to tell her something like...
You were cheating.
Yeah, exactly. She thought I was going to tell her I was cheating, or that I was... that I was bisexual or something, or gay or whatever. She's waiting, and I said, so I really have, I think I said fetishes first. She went, okay. And I went, I've got fetishes. And at that point, I think I wanted her to be more curious and be like, oh, that's cool, tell me what they are. And she wasn't.
Oh, Lord.
So that was immediately a bit deflating, but I thought, fair enough.
That's a terrible expectation. So you're like, I'm a fetishist, and she, in her mind, is thinking, oh my God, is he talking like, does does he want to take a shit on something? You know what I mean? Like, she's thinking the worst.
Yeah, well, then I tell her, because I didn't have the confidence, I was still really embarrassed and insecure about having this fetish, and didn't know anyone else with it. I then went on to say I like being forced feminized. And then she went, well, what does that mean? And I had to sort of break it down. And the breaking it down, do you know what I mean? My heart's fluttering, my forehead's sweating. I don't want the people downstairs to hear us. And I'm also...
Downstairs?
Yeah. I was...
Are you shouting?
No. But it's all the sort of paranoia that's going on in your head when you're coming out to someone about this stuff, right?
I want to be forced feminized. Sorry, Mrs. Jones. Sorry.
So, anyway, I digest.
You digest.
I digest. The point is I think it'd be great to get your FetLife friend on if they're not going to be able to, are they, by the sounds of things? But all I say is find another way in.
Oh, I will be working with him.
Okay, yeah, actually, I forget. You've got the king on the case. I say no more.
Today's episode, we're going to focus a little bit on the history of pantyhose. Found some interesting little tidbits about the general history of pantyhose that I think would be something that would be behoovy for our listeners to know. Would you like to know about the history of pantyhose?
I would love to. I feel like we could do a whole series just on that, just with the questions and the curiosity I have.
Well, do you want? We could do it in segments if you want. We could sort of talk about the actual origin of tights, which everybody knows here, I think.
Yeah, let's go from the origin and then into how it became fashion, and then let's see what you got. Go for it.
Well, as many of us are aware, that pantyhose, well, they were not pantyhose back when this happened, but they were originally worn by men. And, of course, you knew that, right?
Well, no, right? Hang on, because these sound to me like stockings.
Well, stockings didn't exist back then anywhere. When we're talking about tights or anything, like when you say history of pantyhose, it includes like any sort of tight-fitting, legwear.
Can I ask that we point out exactly when they become what we love today, specifically? Because my feeling is that it was somewhere in the late 1950s.
Yes, you are right, but I was going to discuss that with my history of it.
And
I
used to get told off for this in school all the time.
Do you have any other questions about the upcoming speech, of which I have not given, that I have not answered the question?
I do apologize. I'm going to zip my mouth like my teachers used to.
Oh my God, you suck.
And
now, will you give the history of pantyhose when you're giving the history of pantyhose? Yes, thank you, teacher. Any other questions? And then, but you know what they always say: there's no stupid questions, only stupid people.
And I've jumped the gun, haven't I?
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, you did jump the gun, but maybe it's because you're in pantyhose and you just want to sit on something. So let's start with hosiery's royal beginnings. They come from the word hosen, which means covering. But believe it or not, they were worn by European noblemen. They were actually worn to have better mobility while riding horseback and bareback. Just kidding about the bareback. That was a joke.
Well, to give us a date, a year, a decade, a century, or
King Charles of France wore padded hosiery in a portrait in 1566.
Wow. So
yes,
that runs parallel with the Tudor era in the UK, which I associate with all those men in hosiery.
Well, believe it or not, Queen Elizabeth I is the reason why pantyhose transferred, or what would become pantyhose, transferred over to female wearers. She's the first well-known woman to have worn stockings and have it recorded. She had her first pair of knit silk stockings made in 1560 and adored them so much that was all she would wear from then on. And then throughout the 18th and 19th century, while hosiery and legwear was worn by women for modesty, protection, yada yada, it basically was a stocking typically like worn underneath, right?
Can I ask a question there? Well, I promise it's related to
you
what you
may.
Said. So right at the essence of it, it was, to be clear, this garment, hosiery, was designed initially for practical reasons with horse riding. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Also, it had to do with It also had to do with the fact that it showed off how much money you had, because in order to have that type of knitting done, you had to have money. So I think it was a little bit of a social status thing.
I mean, someone must have sewn or knitted or created the first ever bit of hosiery somehow.
Yes.
Like, I wonder what that was.
Somebody
Before King Charles saw it.
Well, it was like it was wool, I believe, from what I understand, very thick. You know, probably not what we would find comfortable, but hey, if that's all you got.
Yeah. Do you reckon they'd have wrapped it around their legs for warmth back in the first ever occurrence?
I'm assuming that if it's cold, yeah.
I wonder if anyone had a fetish for it back then.
Of course they did. I mean, anything tight fitting is gonna have a fetish. I don't care.
Can you imagine someone in the 1400s running off in the middle of the night with their mums or their dads knitted woolen stockings?
No, it's not their. Why would they? They could get their own if they were rich.
So if you were poor, basically, I'm trying to think about the same way in which the fetish comes out. It's normally from people who aren't allowed to wear them. Us men in this society, people who aren't allowed to wear them or can't wear them, see them. I'm trying to find.
That's not necessarily how all fetishes start. It can be one way a fetish is starting, but that's not like the prerequisite. Like it doesn't have to be forbidden or like taboo in order to have a charge. That just helps.
Right, okay.
But let's face it, the feeling of pantyhose, the look of pantyhose, I feel like they would still become something fetishized even if it were completely acceptable for men to wear. So, shall we go to the 1920s?
Oh, wow, that's a big leap. What about...
The big jump, because...
Okay, because this is just an introductory history episode, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, this is an introductory. And if you have anything to add, sir, you're like, well, you're skipping parts of the story, aren't you? Well, what part of it... I don't know what part you're skipping, but I know you're skipping. What? Okay, but do you know the first person who's ever made them? What was their full name? What the family do for work? And also, do you think that maybe you could be a little bit better at telling this story? Because I'm British, so
no, I don't. I think I really think that you've done an excellent job. You've done way more than I've brought to the table. You've just enlightened my curiosity senses, and I'm just loving. And I'm just loving the idea. So just to cap off that section, can you imagine?
In the future, if I say, now do you want to jump to this time? That's rhetorical.
Ah, got you.
Yeah, it's more like, I thought you would be like, yeah, let's go. And you're like, oh, that's a lot of time. That's why. I'm like, oh, no. You're a difficult student, aren't you?
I am.
Did you get in trouble in school for being a sass mouth?
Yeah, and as you'll see, that's what I was saying. This is what I was like at school. They'd always be like, McSheer, stop asking questions. We're getting to that.
And you still can't help it today. And that's why we love you, because you're a little question machine. So let's try this again. Do you want to go to the 1920s, McSheer?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, if you don't want to go to the 1920s, we do not have to go to the 1920s, young man. I will turn this car around and we can go back home and you can sit in your room and think about what you've done.
I am stood here, as you'll see if you can see the live pictures, I am stood like I'm in some sort of naughty corner with my miniskirt on and my meek tights on and heels. It's quite funny.
Oh, great. You're not going to stop because this is arousing you. You're getting told off by the teacher and you're like, oh.
I have to stand in the corner and wear tights for my bad behaviour.
Yeah, that's, I know for a fact that would not be how I would punish you. I mean, if I really wanted to punish you, if I wanted to teach you a lesson, I wouldn't be like, go do that thing that you enjoy the most. Now, stockings really blew up with the rise of the flapper. Now, they were worn up to their knees. And then stockings became more, the silk stockings we're at now, became more of something that was worn with garters or, that kind of thing.
By women, yeah?
Hold-up stockings. Yes, by women. And now where we've moved on, men have not been wearing them for quite some time. Now, they were previously supposed to be under dresses, but now they are being shown off a lot more because patterns are being made. Now, here is where the gods of pantyhose come in. DuPont, in 1939, a company that used science and engineering to solve problems that were clothing related, they invented nylon. That's significant, right? Nylon stockings became all the craze, but was not to be long lasting, because you want to know what happened next? Rhetorical.
Yes.
World War II happened.
Aha.
And because of that, because of the demand for nylons, women were asked to ration and donate their hosiery for their war effort. And it helped create things like parachutes, airplane cords, and tents. So at this point in time, women were actually resorting to wearing liquid stockings, which is they would paint their legs, including the hemline that would go up their like the back of their leg. They would paint that on. This is when leg shaving actually became a popular thing too. Just thought I'd mention.
Can you imagine a parachute maker who was also a hoser at the time? And if your job, imagine if you or me or any of us hosers were working on that shift, receiving the boxes of stockings from the population of women to make parachutes out.
I would say that's one happy hoser.
We're down a parachute, Sarge. Do you know what happened? Who's that guy blushing in the corner?
I'm sure you nicked a pair, as you say. Nick 'em. Just nick 'em.
It's a deeply erotic vision going off in my head right now of some early 1940s 25-year-old.
Just a guy in a candlelit room, young man, beating off around pantyhose everywhere, and parachutes made of pantyhose.
Okay, carrying on. So after shaving legs in World War II.
So, liquid nylons were the thing. They were not really, believe it or not, surprise, surprise, not really the greatest thing. There were women who were even going to get their legs professionally painted at like stores. So when the war ended, nylons they came back with a vengeance. Macy's sold their entire stock of 50,000 pairs in 6 hours.
When's this? Late 1940s?
1945, when the war was over, like right as the war was over. So it became a craze, right? Okay. So then we're finally getting to it. Are you getting ready for what we're getting to as far as what we now know as pantyhose? Pantyhose were actually brought about by one of the guys who worked at DuPont. His name is Alan Gant, not to be mistaken for Alan Grant of Jurassic Park. But his wife was pregnant and was bitching about how she is just not enjoying having to put stockings on with a giant child in her stomach. And she held up a pair of panties and a pair of stockings and said, "Go make this one thing." So he did. And they became popular because what happened was in the 1960s and 50s, but mainly the 1960s, the pantyhose made it so you didn't have to wear a girdle anymore or any garter or anything like that. You'd only have to wear a pantyhose. With the rise of the mini skirt and pop icons like Twiggy popularizing how to wear it, they became an icon of being like anti-establishment. It was youth culture. Women were wearing them to be, chic. It was a movement. It was an explosion, as it were.
Wow.
And that's how that happened. It was basically Twiggy and Liza Minnelli are really two of the people that they mentioned who brought wearing colorful pantyhose into the forefront, because those were not ever done before. But now you start seeing all those bright blue, bright purple ones with polka dots. And then in 1967, Pretty Polly came out, and then what we have is essentially the rest is history as far as the rise of pantyhose. And I'll save the rest of the story for another episode as far as what happened to them in, maybe the 70s and 80s and where they are now and where they are on the world view. But I thought I'd just, maybe give a little bit of a little dose for you of pantyhose history.
I am enlightened, and I could listen to that again, and I'm sure someone else will.
You're touching yourself, aren't you? You're touching yourself in your pantyhose, and that's why you're distracted. You dirty, dirty girl.
I'm doing that thing where I'm just like pulling them up over my knee and stuff.
Oh, are they not all the way?
No, they are.
Down?
It's just fun to do it. I just like doing it, and I love doing it casually.
Oh, that's okay, because I've been rubbing myself like crazy. So that's my little section. One little fun little bit of trivia that for everybody in America, that apparently May 15th is National Stocking Day. But it does include pantyhose. I went to the site about it, and it's sort of celebrating all things nylon, all that good stuff.
May 15th, I think by the time we get around to May 15th, 2023, we'll have a whole. It gives everyone time to have a little build up, a practice, put it in their diary. It's like our own pride, right?
Yeah, it's like pose pride. Pantyhose pride. You got to be proud of it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. And if you got to like work yourself up to that, you got to get yourself into a frenzy. And because and I'm not going to let McSheer get away with this, but you will be wearing publicly by the time we're done. But you know what? I think he will. I think he will, guys. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
May 15th next year, I'm sure, will be, like I say.
You'll be doing it before May 15th.
I think we'll be doing, who knows, we might even have our own, if we're big enough, we could have our own party, no? Event.
I think we can have a party if we're small enough.
We have a...
I mean, let's not limit ourselves. I mean, like, if we're big enough.
Well, I just mean in terms of...
Only if we're popular, we're going to have a party.
Well, I guess it could just be the two of us meeting up. We could do a show live or something, couldn't we?
Well, I think we could probably find a few people to, join the party, because I've checked our stats. We're not the only two listening to the podcast, so that's a good thing.
Okay, that's nice to know.
Yeah, we've got a bit of an audience already. So, yeah, it won't be just the two of us.
Well, it's always been my dream for a long time to have an event to go to participate, and I don't...
A Zoom pantyhose party sounds great. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be publicly wearing, but it would be publicly wearing, because you'd be doing it in front of a bunch of different people.
What a gift that would be for everyone that we're talking about, with a big throne at the top for you.
I mean, sure, if that's what's necessary, then I'll do it. I had a fan send me one time a full-blown, king's robe with the king's top outfit and a crown and everything and pantyhose to wear with it. And there's photos of me wearing it. I post them myself online. I could not believe it. This thing was ridiculous. You
should re-release those. I'm thinking of Freddie Mercury. You should re-release them for some of our followers or even Patreon. It's up to you.
They're also available for looking if you do join my website, pantyhoseking.com, where you can see pictures of myself and other guys in pantyhose. Not McSheer yet. We'll get him there, but there's just a ton of that, as well as invitations to the chat room on Discord, and I'm doing another ad. But you know what? I gotta do it. I gotta plug myself. And you know what? McSheer's gotta plug himself too. When's the last time you plugged yourself?
Something I'm definitely working on with my partner, because wow. But again, so much better if I've got tights on. If I haven't, then I'm less into that. It
holds it in.
Yeah, I guess. It's just ultra... It just makes me feel even more like a little fucking sissy bitch.
Little bitch.
Yeah, exactly. Without tights on, I sort of just go, I don't know. I think I would like it maybe for the practical feeling, physical feeling, but in my head, it doesn't sort of race my motor as much.
So I've heard of guys actually layering pantyhose so the plug stays in, no matter what they're doing.
Yeah. I think what I found through watching a lot of the sort of sissy porn stuff is, and I have this fantasy personally, it's the idea that you're forced to wear the outfit, including your tights or pantyhose, and for an extra slice of entertainment for the people you're serving, they insert a sort of vibrating butt plug into you.
Oh, I've done that with guys.
And it's just so wonderfully demeaning.
I've done that before with guys. A lot of guys from Germany. A lot of pantyhose wearers in Germany. This guy, he was straight, but he's like, "You're awakening things in me that I did not know I'd had in myself before. I would have never imagined that I would like it from a man." And I'm like, okay, all right, yep.
It's been a really nice episode. It's been really cool. What have we got coming up in terms of guests and...
Coming up, we have the original, the OG of men's pantyhose websites, Mike of Mike's Pantyhose, is going to be on the show. And we also have the famed podcaster and the person responsible for us meeting, Kathy K from Strictly Anonymous. She will be coming up in the next couple of weeks as a guest. We're going to have her on and quiz her about her discovery of pantyhose and how she brought it to the forefront for her podcast, which she's done an immense immensely fantastic job. So that's a couple of people that you can look forward to. Not going to give them all away right now, though, McSheer, because it's been a magical, mystical experience.
It's been a great experience, been a bit more relaxed. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it this week.
Yes, may somebody out there get a good masturbatory experience going. If that's what we can do, then that's all that matters.
Yeah, God, I feel so objectified. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for being had.
See you next time.
See you next time.